In the very beginning, we named this piece Reckless Love, thinking of the Romeo and Juliet Reckless Love, the Tony and Maria Reckless Love, where it really was two kids that were acting recklessly. As things evolved and changed, we realized that there's a different reckless love. A reckless, you abandon everything, and despite everything, you love with all your heart. And that's the reckless love that we arrived at. That's the reckless love that we're presenting here today.
What the entire dance production is about is that no matter how far we go, how much loss that we feel, that the reckless love of God always finds us.
We spent a lot of mornings at Neighbor's Mill. To say that we wrote and rewrote is an understatement. One morning, Lainey came up with the idea of doing the 5 stages of grief, and everything started to evolve and fall into place at that point.
Building a ballet is always really interesting because you can write a story and you can plot it out and know where the character's journey takes them. But then you have to figure out how to communicate that through dance. So it's been a really interesting process being on the development side of things, but also as a choreographer. These dancers have knocked it out of the park. They've been phenomenal. They've been great working together, working with us, being patient. And it's really been a blessing to work with everybody here.
For me, this collaborative process has been one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. The production has quite a few dances and quite a few choreographers. And to have a vision and to say, okay, now you go and capture it, it's really amazing to walk into a room and say, you did it. But what's been really kind of cool for us to see is that each person, especially the leads, were cast in exactly the role that they were supposed to play. And I think that it's provided some healing for each one of them. You'll see in the very beginning that Mrs. D is faced with something very challenging, some news that changes the course of how things are going to go for her and her daughter and for her studio.
And so you begin to watch the 4 leads travel through the 5 stages of grief. Mrs. D's daughter, Mia, is plunging deeply into denial, and she kind of turns into a relationship for healing and for love and to feel safe.
Ava, pretty early on, she falls into bargaining, and she's like, if I dance more, if I do better, everything will be okay. Through this process, she gets a better idea of the big picture. I think her character really grows a lot through her process.
I think anger is one of those emotions that the dance really portrays exactly what happens as anger begins to flame. It's a very contagious stage of grief, and to me, anger is one that we really have to watch, because if anyone around us is suffering with anger, it's very, very easy to fall into that, and same with depression.
And I think in depression, we see that it is smothering, and that is also infectious as it starts to seep in. We see one of our leads, Corinne, really fall into that depressed space. It begins to seep in and take over the rest of her studio.
Acceptance was a hard piece for me to kind of articulate what we were looking for in that. So you'll see in the dance, it's absolutely stunning, but there's a whole lot of kind of weaving and what that acceptance stage does to you, and I feel like it somewhat weaves your spirit.
It was really important for me, choreographing acceptance, that we still had the processes that they went through be part of that dance. So you still see glimpses of grief and depression and anger and bargaining. Those things don't just go away after, everything's done. They're still there and you're still fighting with them, but you are able to move on and move past things.
We really just want to take a moment and say thank you to our choreographers, to our dancers, to our parents. We can't do it without all of you, so we say thank you.
I challenge each of you to kind of walk away from this asking yourself, what is the reckless love of God? What does it mean? He pursues us, but how can we go into our everyday life and love recklessly?